what we got to do.
But, as you look forward, Craig, into what they're doing, Jacob Gall we had on the show yesterday, and we'll probably re-rack that towards the end of the show. But what does it tell you that, and part of this, and look, I'm giving J.D. Piquel credit here. He had a point on the hard count that, after your, 15 practices you've had with all your team in the spring, he didn't agree that they should have taken a transfer. You should have known. I look at it the other way. If you're looking at multiple transfers after spring football, I think you kind of know what that means, don't you, Craig?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of trying to think about his point here, that they should have known going in, and so they shouldn't be looking through the portal right now. Is that what you're saying?
They should have their starters, but I don't think they have their starters. I mean, I think that's why you're going to the portal.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have a starting quarterback. So,
yeah.
I mean, technically you should have a starting quarterback name probably coming out of spring ball as well. I mean, you'd love to have all your starters named, but I disagree. I think it says what it says. It says that the guys that they have, they're not sold on. I mean, that's what it says. If they were sold on the guys they had, they wouldn't be going in the transfer portal. Because rest assured, they'd much rather be spending that scholarship on a wide receiver or a cornerback or a safety or really anything but the offensive line, I would think. So, yeah, I mean, they clearly aren't happy with what they have or are not satisfied with what they have, or maybe they're feeling like it's okay, but it can be better. And, you got to think about all the guys coming back on this team. Like, if they feel as though the offensive line's good enough to win 7 games, but if they add a couple guys, they could maybe win 9 games. Why would you not add guys? I mean, that's right. You're trying to win as much as you possibly can. So I think one says they're not exactly satisfied with who they've got, but it could also be just trying to spin it positively that they feel like they could get even better. And both those things are probably true in this case. So I'm not worried about them scouring the transfer portal. I'm more worried about the number of guys they've missed on in recruiting evaluations, which I don't blame entirely on this staff because they've only been around for 1 year. And I don't blame on the offensive coordinator to the O-line coach because they haven't been here for more than 6 months yet. So new eyes came in, and they got to look at what was on campus. And so, I mean, I see what JD's saying, but if Eric Mateos doesn't arrive until February, what exactly was he supposed to do at the end of the season about who was in the O-line room? So that doesn't really jive with me.
Yeah,
exactly.
Now, he said he's changed his point of thing is he's kind of changed his tune because that was his original thinking. And
gotcha.
and look, I think that as maybe fans want to think that everything will be better because the pandemic is over, but the pandemic exposed a lot of things about a lot of teams around the country, like. If you have a normal offseason, your offensive line probably isn't as bad as it was last year, but that tells you where your floor was, though, right? So where your ceiling really is. So we saw the floor, but that probably means the ceiling wasn't that high to begin with.
Man, they laid on the floor all year long.
Yeah.
Like that was all there was the floor. There was no big rise in any certain game. There was no, ceiling that even got scratched. I mean, I don't think we have any idea of what the offensive line's capable of, and we don't even have an idea right now of who the starting 5 are. So, I was on Sirius a couple of days ago at their Big 12 show or whatever, and they were asking me about Baylor. And I think it was a delay in the phone call that just made it weird on my end because it's like you say something and then like 5 seconds go by without any reaction. You're like, did I say something like stupid or weird or what? But I did feel particularly as though maybe I was talking dumb when they asked me how many wins I was expecting for Baylor, and I said around 7. And they didn't have any sort of a reaction to that, but that's what I'm sticking with. I think this is a team that could jump up and win 6 or 7 games next year. My floor for them is a bowl game. I think 6 wins. You won 2 games last year. You had no non-conference. You should win at least 2, if not all 3 of your non-conference. That right there is 5 wins. So you can't go beat 1 or 2 other teams. I think they can if they get a little bit better, but it is going to hinge, a lot on that offensive line, and there's a lot to sort out there still. So it's, until all the pieces fall and we know who exactly to, pick out of the toy box and line up to actually play, it's kind of hard to really say too much. But I think the pickup they got yesterday, Jacob Gall, the fact that he said he was playing center, I think that's a great thing. He is more naturally a center, as he said. I've seen some comments about like, oh my gosh, that's concerning because he only really played guard at BYU. And it's like, no, he did play some center. He played some center coming out of high school. He said that to us. So if he can wrap up the middle, that alone would make this a much better offensive line because they had problems at center galore last year.
Well, if you have him at center and Connor Galvin at left tackle, that probably means, based on what Grayson said, that Grant Miller is now your left guard.
Right.
And then right tackle and right guard, to me, are the ones you really going to have to wonder about.
Yeah, they don't have a right tackle, really, based on everything that people have said. There's not really a strong candidate. You talk about putting Gavin Byers there. Well, he's a true freshman. Mm-hmm. If he can play as a true freshman, that's fantastic. But I don't want to see him play because he has to. I want to see him play because he's good enough to play. Because we've seen a lot of guys over the last few years who were playing because they had to, not because they were good enough to. And then it showed on the field. So I don't think they're in that position. I think, the talent level could certainly be better. But I would have to think, especially if they add another guy or two, that there should be enough talent. There should be enough bodies to be a respectable offensive line. I'm not sitting here with any of my criticisms or anything like that thinking that they should be Alabama or Ohio State or even Oklahoma. I'm not expecting that. I'm just expecting something respectable, which is not what it was the last couple of years. It was not good at all last year. And really, they get the focus, but a whole lot of people weren't really good last year. So, if the quarterback plays a little bit better, then the offensive line takes less heat. If the receivers catch the ball a little bit more, maybe actually make a play after the catch, then that makes a difference. The running backs actually break some tackles and make a long run. That makes a difference. So it's all in, man. It's got to be everybody getting better this offseason.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, the confluence of events that happened, not only to the season that everyone in the country had to deal with, but the fact that the offensive line was already going to be their weakest position. So they had to overcome that. Well, they had a quarterback that regressed, which didn't help. Like, Charlie Brewer is probably going to be, if he's back to somewhat normal, he'll probably be fine at Utah because
I'm really interested in that.
Because he had either regressed or something was going on, or it was just his whatever might have been minor regression combined with the fact that he was playing behind the weakest position on the team, just started a gas fire you couldn't stop. And then you got running backs that weren't happy with the offense that, then that leads to, the mental aspect of last year cannot be undersold for anyone.
Oh my
God. The mental drain of what teams had to go through. And then, when you don't have the guy who, and this is not a knock on Dave Aranda, this is just what look, when a new manager comes into a Wendy's, if they liked the old manager at the Wendy's, everyone's going to be bummed, right? And the new manager's going to have to be like, no, we'll still have fun, or they'll still be the same thing, or there's different ways to do it, and I'll show you, they can do that. It's the same thing at Baylor, where you had a guy whose real gift is motivating you and getting you to buy into the whole team concept. Well, then you get an offensive coordinator that's not playing the system that, made you look good, and you're not flourishing, and it's just not a fit anymore.
The biggest thing was him losing, dude. It didn't even matter what Larry Fedora did or what offense they were running. That certainly played into the issues. But if they were winning games, Paul, then nobody's threatening to leave. Nobody's unhappy. Because it's all that matters is winning. That's all that really matters in the long run. Yes, the personal relationship side took a big hit. And so, that was magnified by the fact then you're also losing. So it's now your personal relationships aren't as good and you're losing. So personally and professionally, you're kind of getting hit between the legs, right? You're getting kicked. And so now I think the personal side has been mended and worked on and established more. I think the new coaches have come in and done a good job with getting right into things and fitting right in. So now it's the performance side. Now it's the professional side, and they seem to have worked really hard on it. If they don't make a bowl game this year, I would be massively disappointed. It'd be one thing if they won 5 games and then they lost triple overtime and a heartbreaker. Okay, you could kind of go, all right, I understand. But if they don't even sniff one, then that would be really worrisome to me. That would be really worrisome.
You look at the games that they were right there. West Virginia,
With no offense.
With no offense. I mean, like,
basically.
They were right there. So there's a third win for you. Iowa State, they had them.
Well, you had at least 2 wins in the non-conference, if not 3 wins. I mean, that's the thing is, like, when I think about my bowl prediction is, you start thinking about the last year, like, okay, how are they going to win 6 or 7 Big 12? No. They got the non-conference. So, BYU, you'd circle that one, and that's certainly not a guarantee. But, if you're going to beat them, it would be this year you're going to beat them because they're losing their star quarterback, their coaches. You've got 2 of their coaches. So, that one I'm penciling as a win for Baylor right now. So, I mean, that right there is 3 more wins than you had last year because you didn't get to play any of those types of games. And, then it becomes a matter of, who in the Big 12 do you think that you can beat? And, I feel good about them being able to take down Texas Tech, even though that's normally a pretty tough game. I think they could beat Texas Tech, although, game time and, where it is and who's playing how at what time is all going to factor into that. But, I mean, Texas State, there's a win. Texas Southern, there's a win. Kansas, there's a win. Am I on the right page here? Okay, yeah. But, I mean, there's a lot of I don't knows as well. I mean, you got to beat West Virginia and Waco. That BYU game is weird because it's in the middle of October. It's not like your 3 non-conference games are right at the top. So that'll be kind of weird sandwiched in between West Virginia and Texas. But, who else there, though? I mean, K-State would probably be – I mean, Kansas, obviously. But K-State, they usually have their number. Outside of that, though, man, there's not gimmies on there.
No,
in the Big 12.
If you think about it, look, TCU, and give us a call, text 254-339-1122. But TCU, to me, is the hardest team to pin down every year.
They're going to be good this year.
I think they're going to be good.
They're going to be better than Baylor on paper.
Yeah. But I still don't know who their quarterback's going to be,